This is 4.2b in Hawks, and this is the section that we use our vertex formula pretty much every time to find the maximum and the minimum. And we want to remember what the vertex formula is. It's going to be the opposite of b over 2a, comma, and then f of the opposite of b over 2a. And what this means is we're going to take, to find our x value rather, we're going to take the opposite of b and divide it by 2a. And then we're going to take that value, f of opposite of b over 2a, to find our y value. We're going to take the number and we're going to plug it back into my function. And so this is my vertex formula. And we need to remember that the x value tells me how many. So if the question asks how many of something needs made, I only need to find the x. But the y value tells me how much. And so if the question's asking me how much money, I suppose I should put a $sign there, how much money, then I'm going to have to find both the x and the y. So let's take a look at these problems and see what happens. So the very first problem is a revenue problem. And what it is, it's going to ask me, it's going to give me the revenue function. And that revenue function is r of x equals 300x minus 0.2x squared. And this particular function lets me know that this is where x is the number of boats produced. The question is how many boats need to be produced for max revenue. Okay, so I see two things. I see the word max, so we know we're talking about a maximum number. And since I see the phrase how many, I can go back to my vertex function, or my vertex formula. It's my vertex formula. And I know that I'm only looking in this case for the x value. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the function that they've given me, this r of x, and I want to rewrite it in degree descending order so that I have my a and my b in the right spot. And so this will become negative 0.2x squared plus 300x. And so now it's in the right spot, and I know that this is my a value and this is my b value. And so in order for me to only find x, I only need to find the opposite of b over 2a. Well, that's going to be easy. In my case, the opposite of b will be negative 300. I will divide that by the number 2 times my a value, which is negative 0.2. Now, we've discussed before how when we have problems like this, we want to take care of the top first and then do the bottom and then divide. So into the calculator, you're going to want to type 2 times negative 0.2. That's going to give you the number negative 0.4. And then you will type negative 300 divided by negative 0.4. And when you do that, you're going to get 750. Now, the question was how many boats? Well, you have a number, but to make sense of your answer, you're going to write 750 boats. And now we're done. Okay, number 2 is going to be similar. We're going to have this total cost function, and it's going to be c of x equals 18,000 minus 120x plus 0.2x squared. And in this particular problem, we know x is the number of cars produced. And just like the last question, I want to know how many cars produced for max revenue. There's my question. How many cars need to be produced for me to reach my maximum revenue? Well, again, since I see the phrase how many, I know I'm only going to have to hunt down the x value here. And so when I look back at my vertex formula, I know I only need the x value, which is the opposite of b over 2a. So when I go to this problem, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to rewrite my formula so that I have this in degree descending order. So that will become c of x equals 0.2x squared minus 120x plus 18,000. And so this is my a value, this is my b value, this is my c value. Now, don't let the fact that I have a c value confuse you. I still only need the opposite of b over 2a. So let me jot that down real quick. Here's what I'm looking for. And so my opposite of b is going to be a positive 120. I'm going to divide that by 2 times 0.2. And again, the top will stay the same for the time being. I will I will multiply 2 times 0.2 and get 0.4. And then I will do my division. And so 120 divided by 0.4 is going to give me 300. And again, my question was, how many cars? Well, you have a number. I need you to write the word cars. 300 cars. And again, we're finished. All right, number 3. It's another revenue problem. And so we're going to start out with this revenue function of a bike shop. A bike shop is represented as R of X equals X times P of X. Now there's a little bit more to this problem. X is the number of bikes sold, and P of X, so we have a second function this time, equals 800 minus 0.4x. This is the price per unit. Well, I guess we could say per bike. So it's the price per bike. Here's the question. We need to find the amount of the max revenue. Well, I guess that should have a question mark, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm actually trying to find how much money I could make. Well, there's a couple of things going on. Okay, the first thing you're going to notice is you have two different functions. We have this R of X bit, and then we have this P of X bit. Well, what's going to happen is, if you take a look at R of X, it's telling me R of X is going to be the value of X, which is the number of bikes sold, multiplied by this function. Well, I know what this function is. So we're going to use some of our substitution stuff that we've done in the past, and we're going to take the fact that P of X is equal to this stuff, and we're going to put it right here. And then so what's going to happen is, I'm going to have this new function. It's going to say R of X equals X times, now instead of me rewriting just P of X, I'm going to write 800 minus 0.4x. So times 800 minus 0.4x, like that. Now we know that when we have things that need multiplied, we have to distribute. And so this is going to become 800x, and this is going to become negative 0.4x squared. And so now I have one right here with this guy. I only have one function, which is what I need. However, I want to always rewrite this in degree descending order. So I will have R of X equals negative 0.4x squared plus 800x. And so now my function is ready to go. Now this time the question is asking me, okay, we look back up in the question, and now it's asking me the amount. In other words, it's asking me how much. And so how much? And so we know that when we're asked how much, we're actually going to have to find the y value. So we're going to have to first find the opposite of b over 2a. That's my x value. And then we're going to have to take that number, whatever it happens to be, and find the function's value when you plug that in. So this time we have to do both. Well, we can do that. This is a, this is b. And so what's going to happen is, I'm going to say, all right, well, in my case, the opposite of my b is negative 800. I'm going to divide that by 2 times my a value, which is negative 0.4. And again, leave the top alone for the time being. Type this into the calculator and get negative 0.8. And when you do this division, that's going to give you the number 1,000. Well, what does this mean? Well, this means that I have to produce 1,000 bikes. Okay, that's wonderful, except that's not my question. Now the question is, if I do produce 1,000 bikes and I sell them, how much money am I going to get? And so I've taken care of the x part. Now I have to find this y part. And so I'm going to take this number 1,000 and I'm going to put it back into my function. So having said that, here's how I find the x. Here's how I'm going to find the y. I'm going to take the number 1,000 and I'm going to put it back into my function. So I'm going to find r of 1,000. And I'm going to take the function that I initially came up with, and everywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace it with 1,000. And I'm going to type it in my calculator and I'm going to hit enter. And so I will have r of 1,000 equals negative 0.4. Instead of x, I replace it with 1,000 squared plus the number 800. Instead of x, I replace it with 1,000. And then I'm going to type this whole entire thing into my calculator. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. I hope you can see this. So let's see. Can we see this? Yeah, we can see it. So we will type, whoops, I've already hit the wrong button. Let's lay down here where you can see better. Okay, so I'm going to type a negative 0.4, and then I'm going to put parenthesis, the number 1,000, close parenthesis, the square button, and then I'll type plus 800, parenthesis, 1,000, close parenthesis, I'll hit enter. And this is the number 400,000. And so what I'll do is I will write equals, and then it was 400,000 And since my question is how much, we're asking money, how much money, I'm going to toss a dollar sign in front of that. And I'm going to circle this. And my maximum revenue from these bikes is going to be $400,000. And now I am totally done. Okay, number 4. This is going to be a different type of problem completely. So let's write it out and then let's talk about what it means and then we'll do the problem. So I have some property, and the back of my property is a creek. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fact that this is a creek, so I'm going to use the creek, and I need 3 other sides, and my goal is to make a rectangular goat pen. That's what I'm trying to do. I have 580 feet of fence to use. What I need to do is I need to find the maximum area of the goat pen. How big can I make this for my goats? Okay, well, the first thing we're going to want to do is draw a picture so that we can see what this looks like visually. Once we have our picture drawn, we're going to have to write some type of a function probably. And then, of course, once we have our function, we'll solve it. And so bear with me through this drawing, okay? So here's my property. Here's the creek, all right? So I know that this is the creek. What I need to do is I need to use the fence somehow like this. And so the inside of this will be my goat's pen, okay? Because I don't need any fence where the creek is. Well, I know that I have 580 feet. I also know that if I draw a rectangle, this side and this side are going to be the same length. So however much fence I use over here, I have to use that same amount of fence here. So let's say I use X fence, X feet here and X feet here. Well, what does that leave me with? Well, if I had 580 and I used X here and I used X here, this guy, whatever his actual length is going to be 580 minus 2X because I'm minusing the pieces that I've already used. Well, I also need to know something else. I also need to know that the area is equal to the length times the width because I'm trying to find the maximum area. Well, if I look at this picture, I know that the length and the width, I know the length and the width rather. The length of my pen is going to be this guy and the width of my pen is going to be X. And so I can write a function just from what I see. I can write a of X is equal to the length, so 580 minus 2X, times the width, which is just X. And so what's going to have to happen is I'm going to put these guys in parentheses side by side, and I'm going to have to distribute because I'm saying, hey, it's this piece times this piece. And so when I do this, I'm going to have 580x minus 2x squared. And this is my new function. So I've drawn my picture. I've written the equation based on the information that I've been given. And so now what I'm going to do, just like I have been doing in the previous problems, is I'm going to rewrite this function in degree descending order. So a of x equals negative 2x squared plus 580x. I know this is my a value, this is my b value. Since I'm actually trying to find the max area, I'm looking for, so since I see the word find max area, I'm looking for how much, right? How much space am I going to have? So I need to find the opposite of b over 2a, and then I need to take that value and plug it back into my function. I need to find my x value first and find my y value second. So let's do that. So in my case, the opposite of b is going to be negative 580. I'm going to divide that by 2 times negative 2. And so again, I leave the top alone, negative 580. When I multiply this, I'm going to get negative 4. When I actually do this division, negative 580 divided by negative 4, that's going to give me 145. So what I know is that x is equal to 145, which is wonderful. And so then I'm going to take the fact that x is 145, so 145 is going to come over here. I'm going to put that inside my function. And so the function that I started with, a of x, I'm going to find a of 145. And so everywhere in my original function that I've written in x, I'm going to replace it with 145. So I have negative 2 times 145 squared plus 580 times 145. And so again, to my calculator I go. And I'm going to type this in just like I see it to make sure that I'm typing it in right, to make sure that you're typing in right. I'm going to have, let me turn this thing on and clear it. I'm going to have negative 2 times 145, and I need to square that. And then I'm going to plus 580 times 145. Make sure I use parentheses here. And when I hit enter, I'm going to get this number 42050. And so I'm going to write that A of 145 equals 42050. I'm going to stick a comma in there. It's 42,050. Now, since we're talking about the fence and the feet, I need to make sure that I put square feet. This is my final answer. This is the maximum area. I am totally and completely done with this problem. Okay, number 5 and number 6. We're going to kind of revert a little bit back to graphs, but we're going to do it in our head. And so number 5, here's the problem. We have f of x equals negative 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. And the first question that we're going to ask ourselves is, does this have a max or a min? Or I suppose neither, because technically it could have neither. So that's my first question. Based on this function, is this going to have a max or min? Well, we have to think back to what we know about parabolas. So since this is a negative out front, somewhere out here on my graph, and I have no idea why, I'm just making this up. Somewhere out here on my graph, I'm going to have a parabola that is opening like this. And so because it's opening downward, that tells me somewhere out there, and you know what, let's get rid of this. Let's just draw the U shape itself. Somewhere out there it looks like this. And so what that tells me is its little vertex is up here somewhere. And so what this means is, on this particular little guy, he has a maximum. And it's going to be this point. I don't know what that point is, but I can figure it out. And so he has a maximum point, for sure. So the second thing is going to ask me to find the max. So find max. In parentheses, we're really looking for the vertex. Okay, that's what the max is. It's really the vertex. And so we're going to use the vertex formula, which you're probably really tired of seeing by now, but it's super fun and cool. We're going to use this to find this point. And so I'm going to take my function and I'm going to scooch it back up so you can see it. And I know that this is my a value, this is my b value. I know this is my c value, but I don't really need it. And so I'm going to find my x value first. And so remember, x is the first one, y is the second one. And so in order for me to find my x, I'm going to say the opposite of b, which in my case is going to be a positive 6. And I will divide that by 2 times my a value, which in this case is a negative 3. So I get 6 over negative 6. And when I do the division, I get a 1. A negative 1, excuse me. So over here somewhere, I'm looking for my vertex. I know it's negative 1 comma something. And so this is my x value. Wonderful. Now, in order for me to find my y value, I'm going to take this number and I'm going to plug it back in. Remember, this is f of the opposite of b over 2a. It just means what's the value of my original function at whatever this number is. So I'm going to find f of negative 1. So I take my original function. Everywhere I see an x, I replace it with a negative 1. So that's going to give me negative 3 times negative 1 squared minus 6 times negative 1 plus 1. Now, this is just an order of operations problem, so we have to be careful. So the first thing I'm going to do is square this 1. So negative 3 times, and I take negative 1 and I square it. That gives me positive 1. And then I'm not going to change anything yet because I'm just showing you. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. This little plus 1 hasn't changed. And so now I have negative 3 plus 6 plus 1. And so negative 3 plus 6 is 3, and 3 plus 1 is 4. And so now my y value is 4. And so I come over here to my vertex and I finish off by writing a 4. And so now this is my vertex, aka my max. And here's my final answer. And now I'm totally done. And so somewhere out there on the graph, wherever my parabola is actually graphed, the point negative 1, 4 is this guy right here. It's my maximum point. Done. Now, if we look at number 6, it's going to be very similar. The problem is f of x equals 2x squared plus 12x plus 23. And again, the first question is max, min, neither. That's what we're trying to figure out. Well, we're going to look out front. And because this is a positive number, we know that somewhere out there on the graph, we don't know exactly where, but we have a parabola that's opening upward. And so now our dot is on the bottom, and so now we have a minimum. We're looking for a minimum. So we can circle that. And step number 2, of course, is to go ahead and find that minimum, which again is our vertex. And so we're going to use the same vertex formula that we've been using to find that, which is going to be the opposite of b over 2a, and then f of the opposite of b over 2a. And so let's do that. And so up here, we can say, hey, look, here's my a value, here's my b value, here's my c value. And again, don't let the fact that we have a c value confuse you. We don't need it. It's just there. We'll eventually use it when we plug it back in, but not yet. And so the opposite of b, so to find my x, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to take my b value, which is 12, take the opposite of it, multiply it by 2 times my a value. In the top, leave negative 12 the same. 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. And so over here, I will write my vertex, and it's going to be negative 3 comma something. And so since I have negative 3, I'm going to go back to my original function, and everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put the negative 3. So to find my y value, I'm going to say f of negative 3 equals 2 times negative 3 squared plus 12 times negative 3 plus 23. And so again, this is now an order of operation problem. So here I go. Negative 3 squared is going to give me 9, so I have 2 times 9. And 12 times negative 3 is negative 36. Don't forget your constant of 23 over here. 2 times 9 is 18, minus 36, plus 23. When you type all of this into your calculator, you're going to get a positive 5. And so that's my y value. And so I come back over here to my vertex, comma 5. And again, what this means, somewhere out there on the graph, I have this parabola that's opening upward, and its vertex, its minimum point, is at the point negative 3, 5. This is my answer. This is my minimum. I am completely and totally done with this problem. All right, number 7. The problem is f of x equals 7x plus 5. And the question that we're trying to figure out here is, does this thing have a max, min, or neither? And so what we've been doing is we've been looking out front here, and we've just been saying, oh, if it's negative, then it's opening downward. If it's positive, it's opening upward. However, if you take a quick peek, this is not a parabola. This is just 7x. This is not 7x squared. And so the stuff that I know here is that it's going to be somewhere out on my graph. It's just going to be a line like this. It's not actually a curve. And so because of this guy right here, since he's just a straight line, he has neither. Okay, this thing doesn't change directions. It's constantly going in one direction rather. And so for number 7, easy peasy. It's neither. I'm done. Moving on. All right, last one, number 8. This is another fence problem with the creek. And so it was the same setup as the last time. The back of my property is a creek, and I'm going to make a goat pen, okay? Or maybe this time I'll make a chicken pen, I don't know. And so I'm going to the setup is exactly the same. I know that it has to be a rectangle, and I know that because it's a rectangle, these two guys are going to be the same. Now, here's what's different. In this particular problem, I have 700 feet of fence to work with, and I'm still trying to find the max area. So it's the exact same setup as the last one. It's just a different number. And so what that tells me is if I use X amount of fence here and X amount of fence here, and I have 700 to start with, this side is going to be 700 minus 2X. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. And so I know that if I'm trying to find the area is length times width. And so I can take everything that I see here, and I can write a of x, which is going to be my function. The length of this is going to be 700 minus 2x, and the width is just x. And so again, I'm going to distribute, and so I will have a of x equals 700x minus 2x squared. And again, I want to write it in degree descending order for my personal self. You may not want to, but just be careful. We have to make sure that the squared piece is always a. And so again, since I'm looking for the max area, basically what I'm asking you is, let's see, how much area really is what I'm saying. And so I'm going to have to find the y value here. And so I need to find the opposite of b over 2a. And then I need to plug it back in and find f of the opposite b over 2a. And that's going to give me my maximum area. So here I go. In order for me to find the x, the first thing I'm going to do is take my 700, turn it opposite, and divide it by 2 times negative 2. For the time being, again, leave the negative 700 alone on top. And when I do this, the number that I'm going to get is 175. And so that's my x value, 175 feet. But again, I know that I don't just want the x value. I need to find the whole entire thing, which is going to give me the total max. And so in order for me to find my y value, I need to find f of this. So in this case, I need to go back to this guy right here, which is my original function. And everywhere I see an x, replace it with 175. And so I will write, instead of a of x, I'll write a of 175 equals negative 2, 175 squared, plus 700 times 175. And then I will go to my calculator, and again, I gotta make sure you guys are typing this in right, because if you don't type this in right, you're not gonna get the right answer. So let me scoot this up some so we can see it. So you're going to do negative 2 times 175 squared plus 700 times 175. And you're going to hit enter and you're going to get a number. So you're going to get 61250. So you're going to put A of 175 equals 61250. And since we're talking about feet, we're going to put a comma in there, say it's 61,250, and we're going to put square feet. And this number is my maximum area, and I am totally done with this section of homework.